All right, so you know how we just discussed how former Cowboy linebacker Jeff Robertson transferring to the school down south we do not speak of made no sense? I'm going to retract that now because new DC Todd Grantham has brought in some new additions that prove it actually makes a whole lot of sense.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at All Day O State Today. We're partially brought to you by FanDuel. Whether it's a massive upset or a last-minute game-tying drive, the NFL playoffs are always better with FanDuel. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets, guaranteed, win or lose. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of Todd Grantham, the Cowboys' new defense coordinator, is the gift that keeps on giving, or getting, might be the better word here, as some new guys have been brought in. Kendall Daniels, linebacker, transfer to OU. It makes some sense. Jeff Robertson transferring to OU to be a PWO linebacker didn't make a lot of sense until now. The Cowboys just got another addition, and this isn't even taken in consideration. You have the number one JUCO linebacker in the country, Chandavian Bradley, coming in. You have linebacker Brian McCoy coming in from Akron while being designated a 5th to 7th round draft pick at this very moment. He decided to forego the draft and spend another season in college in Stillwater, America. Then you have to take in Brandon Rawls, the epitome of a guy who can contain on the outside and not allow the running backs and the tight ends to get crazy, which was a limitation we saw of KD this previous season, that have us upticking the excitement level. And now we have another addition by way of Ole Miss, who we recruited very heavily out of high school, Jaylon White. Jaylon White decided to go to Ole Miss, even though he had offers from Kansas State, Louisville, Oklahoma State, Utah, Memphis, SMU, Tulane, and others. This is an individual that was a top 15 recruit in the state of Arkansas coming out. He played defense and offense. He was a junior captain and a senior captain. He also threw for 2,035 yards while completing 125 passes, almost 20 touchdowns. He also rushed for almost 500 yards and 7 touchdowns, and being a absolute savage on the defensive side of the ball. He has been more of a piece at Ole Miss as opposed to a mainstay. But even then, he turned down guys like Arkansas and Utah and Baylor this go-around as well. Originally, we recruited him as a safety, 6'1", 195 pounds coming out of high school, has ballooned up to 6'3", 220 pounds now at Ole Miss. He has played in several games. He's appeared in multiple snaps, especially on special teams. Actually, almost every single snap you can physically possibly be in on special teams. He played linebacker in multiple games this previous season, including games against Duke and Mississippi State. And whenever you're looking at somebody who hasn't quite been able to pop off just yet, he's still kind of young in his journey. And now he gets to be a Cowboy, another Cowboy out of the SEC, who also played quarterback, who accentuates some of that versatility that we've just recently talked about. Trip White is going to be a very good addition to the Cowboy linebacker room, who continues to just get better and better and better. He was ranked number 71 safety in the country by ESPN. He had 59 tackles, 8 pass breakups, 5 tackles for loss, 2 picks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recovery, 2 blocked punts, while also starting at quarterback. This is an individual that I think is going to be able to come in and compete for contributing time instantaneously. Another individual who I expect to come in and compete for playing time almost instantly. It is good news to hear that Kobe Hilton has been, released, I guess you could say, by the NCAA to have another year. He's not in the portal. He's coming back. He's not afraid of the different guys coming in. He's not afraid of competition. Neither is DeKelvin Beeman, who was another dude that it just didn't make a whole lot of sense for him to leave. Well, he's staying, and now he gets more competition because UCLA transfer DB Jaylin Davies is a Cowboy. This dude originally started off his career at Oregon, coming out of the powerhouse and heralded modern-day high school. He was a four-star prospect, listed as the number 152 player in America by 247. He was an Under Armour All-American, and he chose Oregon over Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Texas, USC, Florida State, and others. Then he decided to obviously move it on to UCLA. He played in all 13 games this season, starting in the lineup for the final 4 or 5 games of the year. He ended up making a career-high 43 total tackles to go alongside a couple tackles for loss, a pick, and career-high 6 pass breakups. He played in all 12 of UCLA games the past season as well, making 8 starts. He had 30 tackles, a tackle for loss, and multiple pass breakups. Guys, this is a very big deal, not just because of the talent level and not just because he was a massive 4-star coming out of high school, played for Oregon, played for UCLA. It's not just because of the names. It's because of the developmental aspects that you're able to get here. This is a dude who has NFL capabilities, but much like a transfer linebacker that we just had leave, hasn't really got to see the peak of his potential quite yet. And with somebody like Jules Montanar being the dude to run DBs in Stillwater, America, guys like this, I think, are going to be able to excel fairly quickly. And we're not done yet. Todd Grantham decided to say, hold my beer, I'm going to get another UCLA guy from the inside. I need some more meat and taters down low, and that is precisely what we have been able to receive at a defensive tackle by way of UCLA, Sitiveni, Havili-Kaufusi. This dude was the number 1 ranked fullback in the country coming out of high school, top 15 by the state of Hawaii. Or by this dude was being heralded as a really prime get for UCLA Army and Navy and Iowa State. And there is a connection here. Whenever you're looking at the Iowa State guy, he coached at, it was Coach Golish. He coached at Oklahoma State a little bit, right, at one point in time. And now he's the head coach of UCF. He was the tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator at Iowa State when Havili-Kaufusi was getting recruited there. This is a dude who came in playing fullback after playing running back. He played fullback in college at UCLA. And then he's another individual that ballooned up to originally he was 6'3", like 235 pounds coming out of high school. Now he's at 6'3", 250 pounds or 295 pounds. Sorry, I was way off on that one. And I think he's going to be able to provide instantaneous ability down low. This is another dude that has appeared in 33 games across the last 5 seasons, 22 total tackles. He has some tackles for loss, played in 11 games, making 3 starts in the previous season where he registered 10 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He had several stops, season high 4 tackles against Indiana. And now he brings this 6'3", 295-pound action to Stillwater, Oklahoma. The athleticism here, I think, is what's going to speak volumes. He played running back, played fullback, and then he just kind of got too big to continue to be playing fullback at UCLA, so they converted him into a defensive tackle. So I definitely think that we have not seen the best of his abilities down low, and this is going to be somebody that can come in and help with the competitive level for somebody like an Aiden Kelly or a Justin Kirkland. I also think that the defensive tackle position specifically needs to get more involved in the stat sheet. Instead of just eating up double teams, which at times is definitely okay and is part of the plan, we also need to technically have the ability to get off blocks and get off double teams and prevent guys from getting to the second level. This is yet another addition to the defensive tackle position that should be able to provide that. So from linebacker to defensive end to defensive tackle, from the DB's room, there's definitely an uptick here in Stillwater. Now, does that mean the expectations uptick? That could be a conversation for a later date, but it kind of feels like it is. The expectations on defense going from really, really bad to who knows what, it's being kicked up quite a few levels right now. Speaking of being kicked up quite a few levels, you and I both know that whenever you're trying to do some budgeting, sometimes you don't really know where all your money is going, especially if you've had subscriptions in the past that you kind of forgot about or you paid twice for. That's where Rocket Money enters the picture. Rocket Money is going to allow you to not have to be bogged down in unnecessary subscriptions that you don't think you still have, but you probably still do. We've all been there. I've had some subscriptions that I didn't realize I was still paying for, as have you. And Rocket Money makes it easy for you to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant with you for your finances all day, every day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps bring and find canceled unwanted subscriptions to bear. It monitors your spending, and it also helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, spending habits, or the goals that you want to hit by the end of the year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users that have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members an average of $740 a year when using the premium apps that they have available. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That is rocketmoney.com/lockedon, rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Go there today to get your change less strange and your money acting less funny. All right, so now we get to switch gears here and switch sports to Cowboy basketball, who finally got the W that they needed inside Gallagher-Iba Arena against the Purple Power Cats, or in this particular case, the Lavender Power Kitties. This game was one of which the big man down low for the Cowboys, Abu Usman, could just not be stopped. 29 minutes for 27 points. Bryce Thompson chipped in 10. Marcellus Chi-Chi Avery was able to chip in 13 as well, hitting a few threes. Brandon Newman, he scored his 1,000th point in this game. He was one of the Western Kentucky individuals that decided to come over with Steve Lutz that understand what he's looking for in his system. Khalil Brantley also chipped in. See, words are hard for me again. Adding 6 points, and Arturo Dean, he's out there getting steals. Devontae Davis, he's providing some meaningful minutes. Jamyron Keller, he's an implementation of what we thought we were going to get out of him last season, and now we're getting that. He played 21 minutes, hit a 3. He's able to get in the lane and create some havoc. I really like the facilitation capabilities of Khalil Brantley, but I think the aggressive nature in which Jamyron Keller plays the game is another welcome addition. Guys, Robert Jennings, he only had 4 points, but I think you could argue that he's been able to uptick his performance recently. And now the Cowboys are 9-5. Now 1-2 in Big 12 with a very, very winnable game against Utah here in a couple days. This was a big victory that we needed because not only was it a W, but 79-66 makes it fairly convincing. And at one point in time, it looked like it was going to be a 20-plus point victory. And K-State, they were led by Coleman Hawkins, who had 18 points. He was a pretty difficult dude to stop. And they gave up a massive run at the end of the first half to get Oklahoma State to a point that I don't think the lead was ever going to be overtaken. Now, it definitely wasn't insurmountable by any stretch, but these are the games that you have to win, especially when you're trying to have the objective of winning at home, right? If you can win at Gallagher-Iba Arena, some of the things that you do throughout the rest of the season become, I don't want to say secondary, but it is less important. And getting a W inside Gallagher-Iba Arena, it's important for a multitude of reasons. One of those being it could start a little bit of a run here, right? Because Utah is a very, very beatable basketball team. And even outside of that, whenever you're looking at the Big 12 landscape, you've got some teams that are expected to make major runs and be big parts of some of the postseason play that haven't really shown it quite thus far, like BYU. which is who we get in Provo, Utah after Utah. So we go to Salt Lake City, to Provo, Utah before we come back home against Colorado, followed by Arizona, who's having a little bit of a down year, then followed by Texas Tech. We should beat Utah. I don't think we beat BYU, right? But we very well could beat Colorado and maybe should beat Colorado, especially with it being back in Gallagher-Iba Arena. Then you have a winnable game on ESPNU and Gallagher-Iba against Arizona, followed by Texas Tech. So going, 5-1, 5-2 over that stretch, maybe not manageable, but going 500 is manageable. We just beat K-State. Beating Utah is a possibility. Beating Colorado is a manageable experience, as is beating Arizona. I think you could argue that Texas Tech is a winnable game as well. Then you got K-State again. So the Big 12 landscape hasn't really begun to take shape quite yet. It's kind of up in the air. We have some good basketball programs, but we've got some teams that were projected to have good seasons that are hovering at the bottom that, from a talent perspective, have more than enough to creep back up and make this thing difficult. But this is maybe a turning point for Cowboy basketball. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves and on the front of our skis here and project that the Cowboys have found new life and they're going to completely explode. But again, you have this kind of win that is very convincing. And you also have the big man, Abu Usman, working down low. That creates a decent number of mismatches. So once again, this was a game where we needed Chi-Chi Avery or we needed Bryce Thompson to get hot, and that didn't happen, yet we find a way to win. Previously, having the big man involvement since Moussa Cisse was somewhat non-existent. It was nice to see a big dude be a matchup nightmare for somebody down low, especially against a Big 12 foe, at a point in the season where you really need to find some footing or it could get ugly quickly. Because if we lose that game, then the outlook of Utah and BYU and Arizona and Colorado and Texas Tech, it looks much less manageable. This was a very convincing W in the place where you need to get W's, setting you up for more potential W's in the same building if you take care of business. If you split on the road in Utah, then you come back to Stillwater, Oklahoma, I would assume that the crowds are going to be a little bit bigger because you're building something that's already better than what we had last season. People can say whatever they want about it not equaling much when the first two Big 12 games were not close in the other direction. To have one flip and be the way that it is against, this is the same Jerome Tang, Kansas State squad that was shattering the earth just a couple of years ago. Now, K-State fans are not happy with the amount of NIL dollar bills they've pumped into basketball to have this kind of 500 season at the moment. But this is a good time for us to seize the moment. You can win this game against Utah. And if you do happen to beat BYU in Provo with some of the most NIL dollars being spent, not only in the Big 12, but in the country, that says a lot about the coaching, a lot about the X's and the O's kind of meeting up with the effort, the tenacity, the defensive nature in which we play the game. And before we get to segment 3 here, I also wanted to point out that I loved how in the second half, when things were starting to get dicey and they were going on a run, we were applying full court pressure. If you have the depth pieces like Arturo Dean that you can put in there to push the envelope defensively, then I think you absolutely have to do it. Because he's not the only one, right? Devontae Davis is another dude that you can put in there for spells to apply so much pressure that it really puts you in your style of game, which is to get up and down the floor and turn things into a track meet, to get shots up in under 12 seconds. All of that, to me, makes a lot more sense when you're pressing the whole time. Now, the downside is getting into foul trouble. But we've done that this year already without doing some of the full court press stuff. So it was nice to see a lot of the half court traps getting picked up, closing down some of the driving lanes, and also doing the full court press. I think we fed off of it. I think it set the right example for the whole team rolling into the fourth quarter. Speaking of rolling into the fourth quarter, third segment, same thing. So Oklahoma State has recently gone through different transitionary periods as it pertains to the fullback, tight end. At one point in time, we did this fun little experiment called the Cowboy back, which I actually thought in theory was a phenomenal idea. In my opinion, it was just a failed application, primarily because of the dude that we brought in to run it. No knock on Jason McIndoe. I think Jason McIndoe is a very, very, very good offensive line mind, who's an offensive line coach, who produced a lot of All-American level guys at Montana State. But asking an O-lineman to come teach tight ends, it never made sense. Now, in the beginning, I thought we were taking baby steps, right? We're going to teach the guys that played fullback and defensive end and tight end to all kind of converge together for this one position where a blocking was going to be pretty important, okay? So in the beginning, have an offensive line coach teach the Cowboy back position, which was a mixture of all three, made sense. And it also made sense to not utilize the tight end in the beginning because we had to get the blocking and the conversational pieces done first. Okay, got it. But then we brought in some tight ends, and we still didn't use tight ends. And then we watched a quarterback get converted to a tight end to go on to be an All-American level tight end that is a draft pick in the NFL that's still doing the daggone thing at tight end. And then we went back to a real traditional tight end. And then we finally got to see it with Josiah Johnson. And then this season, it didn't really equal the Josiah Johnson 2023 stuff, but we did get to see the emergence of true freshman and Stillwater, Oklahoma native Josh Ford, who I think we all can agree is going to be a very, very good tight end in Stillwater, Oklahoma, who could have some of that All-American pedigree in him. But then we add guys like Jordan Owens, 6'6", 260 pounds. Then you add Will Money from Utah State, 6'4", 230 pounds. And you add Will Hammond from North Texas, 6'4", 240 pounds. This idea of bringing in a bunch of tight ends to go alongside somebody like a Tabor Shetron, it got everybody insanely excited. And if you're anything like me, hearing that we're doing away with fullback again was kind of a gut punch. But then you put the puzzle pieces together, and it does make sense why we brought in all of these tight ends who have been productive at stops previously, who none of which are really the blocking-oriented 24/7 style of guy. Maybe a Jordan Owens, but he also provides that 6'6" frame and athleticism that is going to be intriguing. I will be kind of sad to see the fullback position go away once again. But you have heavy hitters like Trent Allen and Jaden Allen Hendricks that are like pretty much Kai Staley style of tight ends anyways, but they have the Chris Carson style of running ability to make people miss and do enough and have enough shiftiness in the open field to make them threats for not just, goal line, 4th and 1 style of scenarios. But we have those guys. So now we know why we loaded up on tight ends and maybe why we had some fullbacks that decided to enter the transfer portal because of this. And then you have heavy hitting dudes like 6'3", 245-pound running back Trent Allen and 6'3", 245-pound running back Jaden Allen Hendricks. They can fulfill that role. And I am a big fan of having a split backfield. Give me maybe even a diamond formation. All right, but worst case scenario, give us some 21, 22 personnel with some wrinkles, some sprinkly wrinkles of awesome sauce built in there, and we'll be happy. The fullback position is gone, but the loading up of tight ends accentuates that we're going to utilize them, but it also accentuates that we're going to utilize them in multiple areas as well as having the big dude. So the explosion of tight end is exciting, but the big guys we have at running back are going to be able to fulfill a lot of roles too that have me stressing less than I was when the millisecond of no more fullback, I was like, oh, great, here we go again. But again, it makes sense. You put the puzzle pieces together. We have a lot of tight ends that are now going to be extremely competitive that have to be pretty big in the run game support as well. They have to be able to help out in chips and getting to the second level to at least occupy the defensive guys enough to make some of the other dudes home run hitters. I'm excited. And I think we're all collectively pretty excited about this upcoming season. You should be excited about the next couple guests that we have coming up, next few guests, realistically speaking. So until then, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the thing. Dislike if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast and people out there. You're everything that makes this thing go. Hit the star, leave a review, do what you do. Later, my taters.